Advanced philosophy memes. We make good memes. Advanced philosophy memes. Base fucking memes.
So long as I'm in this Oval Office.
Yo. Yeah. So here's a picture of Norm Macdonald with The Simple Life from A Cure of the Dawn.
Who are you talking to?
He looks like he's being very polite with them.
Yeah, doesn't he? Doesn't he seem right?
Especially for Norm Macdonald. Like, he's not known for that.
I don't know why this came up. I think we were talking about, was it George Bush? I think it was basically George Bush being more intelligent than he let on. Most people wouldn't admit that he was like playing a character. I think you had said this, like he's a Yale jester, theater, kind of Yale theater, Connecticut boy pretending to be a Texan. And that was kind of clever. Like by playing the dummy, everyone would put the joke on him. Hey, Blake's here. What's up, Blake?
He was like President Larry the Cable Guy. Hey.
Sorry, Parmesan, you were talking about how Bush pretended to be stupid like a joker. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, not like a joker. He wasn't there to entertain us. He was doing it so people would think he was a harmless idiot rather than like someone who was doing things that were perhaps not 100% great for everyone. And like, no matter who you are, Republican, Democrat, far left, far right, extremist on whatever side, you could probably have some kind of criticism about George W. Bush.
This is a different dictator that painted this one.
I mean, can you name anything that's good for everybody?
Not
that everyone agrees
usually on. Usually, water is probably one of those things, but air.
The word hagiography comes to mind. Hagiography is a type of text. It's a type of biography where you only record the good things about somebody. And so a lot of religious texts, when it comes to like, right, was there anyone that's infallible, that's immune from criticism? But
what's this dude doing? Painting a picture of a sad Saddam Hussein clown, though. That's freaking wild. That's wild.
Like, imagine painting a picture of a guy you killed like that. Did he already kill him after when that was painted, or was he still alive at that point?
Technically, George Bush never killed. I never seen George Bush kill nobody, right? Like you never seen him actually.
Yeah, like John Gotti never got his hands dirty either. You know what I mean? But
yeah. No, he's a dictating painter, right? Which is kind of, these are some other paintings by a different dictator. But at the same time, you see where I'm going with this.
So I have a certain amount of sympathy for W just because he so obviously was just so far out of his league when 9/11 happened, and he was just playing catch up, trying to figure out what to do and how to actually govern at that level of complexity. I think he kind of is one of the people who just, he genuinely was a frat bro. We elected a frat bro, and then he did his best.
But he was a frat bro from the era where weed was good. And I was reading the High Times Encyclopedia, and there was a study that said that the best students academically performing in the last years of high school and in college had tried cannabis the earliest in their life. So, and then again, he knew people who still had the cocaine left over from the 70s, you know, when it was good too. So you get those two things, and the doctors say you're not allowed to take those two things at the same time, because then you'll end up like fucking president or something, you know, because you'd be wicked smart.
That's funny. Right next to,
right next to, I would not want to end up president. That would be pretty shitty, in my opinion. Like, a job doesn't pay enough for the amount of stress it would give you.
Oh yeah. No,
well,
like,
I mean, you have the power to do anything, though. Everything you do becomes legal. Like right now, Trump's meme coin, right? Like the get Trump memes. Have you seen this crap? Like, I always thought that Trump's Twitter account was hacked because he posted that you could now buy the Trump coin, Trump meme coin, right on his Twitter. And it's like, if this should be completely illegal, except it's the president, so nothing the president does is illegal. So he can totally do this.
You guys,
so he's
you
like
guys know,
shilling this.
you know Juke Squad on YouTube? Because he posted a short video. He's a Florida guy. But basically, like, he's like, because of this meme coin, and, you know, we've been crypto bros like, part-time for a while, but it's like the guys living on my couch now are millionaires. Like, I don't get it. Like, what just happened? Because overnight it went from 60 cents to $30, and
that's wild.
It's a new time. I think they call that new money, as opposed to old. Like George Bush came from old money ? Or oil money? It's still oil money. Might be new money. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, Prescott Bush and everybody in the banks back when, you know, the Nazis needed a place to put their gold bars. Everybody knows that story, right?
Well, tell that story, but also tell the story that you were saying
kinky,
about how you watched a video, you said, of where George Bush kind of like dropped his fake Texan accent and went back to speaking like the Connecticut boy he is, right? You said you saw him do something.
Oh God, yeah. I wish I could find it. We just spoke about it right in the pre-show, and I just hadn't had it ready. But there was a video right before Bush left office where he's sitting in the Oval Office with a reporter, and I forget exactly what the question the reporter asked him, but it pissed him off. And like, as he's ranting at this reporter about the answer to the question, he's just he's totally dropping the character that he played in public for 8 years. And I'm sitting there watching this, and I'm like, wait a second. I didn't understand this guy as someone capable of speaking like that. And now here he is, just like perfectly eloquent and passionate and angry. So it's obviously natural.
Code switching. It's called code switching.
Yeah,
right? Kind of.
Yeah, he code switched hard, and when he did that, I was like, "Wait a second, what has been going on for the last 8 years?" Like, is
his
guy
dad was
really
head of the CIA, right? His father was, and then his father was also president. So
wait, his father was fucking president, so I would imagine he probably ran every single executive agency.
you misunderestimated him the whole time, you know?
Yeah, damn straight. He pretended to be like. Literally, he looked at Larry the Cable Guy and he was like, "That's how I want people to see me." I think, because he was not that guy, but neither was Larry the Cable Guy either.
Trump limited the vocabulary in his speeches on like the first run to like a 250 word vocabulary, and that's why he ended up using words like bigly, because he was told that enormous or gigantic, those words just don't play well to. Well, you sound highfalutin. You're using big words now, you know. So, and again, it worked. It worked. You got to appeal to the middle of the road, you know.
That's what
I heard.
The common denominator now, huh?
I'm not saying it's a good thing. I mean, we don't need to get into politics, although it is Inauguration Eve.
I'm not saying that it's politics. That's grammar.
I mean, the middle of the bell graph is the hugest part, right?
It's the hugest. I mean, not for nothing. He talks like a New Yorker. I can't fault him that hard.
You know, but,
so what's a profound question we can ask Blake? No, sorry.
I was just thinking about how Bush Sr. was the only one to get like daily CIA briefings until his death. I mean, every president can get them, but he was the only one who actually like took him up on it.
I mean, like, previous presidents tend to serve as advisors for the current president, regardless of party, right?
In theory,
that's my understanding.
Yeah.
Like
There were a lot of
president is
people on
always
the
like
Jimmy Carter detail that are available. Just and the Queen as well. The Queen and the King
like
probably have
not for nothing. Like if I
similar
was the president,
security services, but not the same. Yeah.
but like if I was the president, right? I probably wouldn't give a shit what color the guy's tie was who was in office last. If I had a question about like some kind of negotiation that went through or something, I needed details about what happened 6 years ago or something, I would call that guy and I would hope he would answer,
I mean, look at how chummy they were at Carter's service.
That's probably good for America.
I think that the party, to go back to the theme of it being theater, the parties themselves, it's an act.
Well, there's no reason for them to want to tear each other apart like they used to cane each other in the Senate. There's no really good reason for that. Like, it's better that
Freud has something to say about that one. That's got to be. I didn't know that they used to cane each other in the. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the first two copies of the Declaration of Independence were also written on hemp paper, and they used to smoke a pipe in Congress too.
Oh, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it at all. Honestly, I feel like it's a healthier habit than alcohol, at least.
That was one of the rants. So Blake, what do you think about this? In the attempt to legalize cannabis, all that society has done thus far in the United States is license big cannabis. And it's still largely illegal for individual citizens to possess and or share whatever it is they're growing at home without looking or risking running afoul of the law somehow. So we've
in New York State you can grow it, but you can't sell it without a license.
Yeah, the licensing of the sale of it, that was always going to benefit big business. So I don't really know what the question is there. Like,
the question is like how many lawyers? How do we get them together to like put another big push? Because I was told growing up that there were international treaties in place, and that's why the United States couldn't legalize even really medical cannabis was borderline. But now we've gotten states like the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that's recreational. But no, the goal is for individual citizens. What would it mean or feel like for weed to really be legal? Would be legal to possess unlimited amounts of this substance and distribute unlimited amounts of the substance without really risk of running like a tax penalty or a fee. Because like out west, the approach was to legalize all drugs in all amounts. And I'm not really sure the East Coast wants to go the same route as the West Coast. But that is an option, Well,
okay. So like,
didn't they undo that like very quickly afterward because a lot of people just dropped dead immediately?
Right. So rather than approaching it from what should be legal, I think it's easier to approach it from what should be illegal. What are the things that we want cops to shoot people because of? Like,
we don't want cops to shoot people at all, and even if they're doing something wrong, they should be booked.
No, seriously. Like, so anything
he said
that
it.
involves,
I mean, you got to come down.
Some attempt to like. So I think it's a good thing that we have some amount of quality control. Like, that there exists quality control. So I think licensing isn't a bad idea. Otherwise, you end up with people not really knowing what they're getting. So having some amount of licensing seems like a good idea to me. Beyond that, I don't like cops. I don't like cops being sent out to interfere with people's daily lives. So beyond requiring a license for the sale of cannabis, I don't see anything that we should be doing.
But you could always grease the palms of whoever's signing off on things. So quality control is sort of like an illusion. If you look at anything that's even now currently regulated by the FDA.
So you have to make it easy to follow the law. You need to make laws that aren't particularly difficult. Otherwise, you're incentivizing people to bribe.
Well, there was a store in my neighborhood that was legally distributing, and they got shut down recently because they were found to be selling loose nuggets. And
like I said, it's just a trap at this point. Again, if you have to decriminalize the possession of unlimited amounts of this. Again, you're asking me just what it would look like or feel like for it to be really legal. And then again, the law meets somewhere in between. We have a good start, as Blake said, is having some sort of scientific process. It's a medical product. The idea is you don't want there to be mold or contamination in there, and ideally, if there is something bad in one of the fertilizers that someone's using, they catch it quickly and make sure that it doesn't keep going out. In the 10 years since it's been legalized in Massachusetts, the label on the back of the package keeps getting longer and longer and longer because the science is actually advancing, where it's kind of real time trying to keep up with what we understand about the plant. And well, the current state of the market is this whole THCA thing. And
that's the active form.
No,
it's synthetic.
It's actually it's non-bioavailable.
And you have to carboxylate it, right?
So synthetic cannabis. So imagine you were trying to make a Hollywood movie like How High, and you wanted to have a giant grow room, and you're in Hollywood, and so you hire a bunch of botanists to make a plant that looks and smells and tastes and feels exactly like the real thing, except it's missing an enzyme, and that enzyme in the plant usually converts the THCA, which has an extra hydroxyl group. It's called decarboxylation, and it happens with heat and pressure under certain conditions. But naturally in the plant, there's an enzyme, and so the genetics of the plant, everyone's just kind of using the seeds that they get in the. Whereas what people need to do is go to Amsterdam. They have seed vaults there, and it's like $100 for 5 seeds. And then you create 5 mother plants from the, again, like these seeds are precious resources because you can't really make them again. It took like a huge breeding experiment just to get the right seeds to be able to have a plant that has a lot and this enzyme in it. And
now, wait a second. If you take a plant that has an abundance of that chemical, right, and dry it and burn it like it was normal pot, then you would still get stones from it because you're decarboxylating it by burning it, right?
Well, see, and that's what the salesman keeps saying. And you know how in Idiocracy, they're like, well, why are you watering the plants with Brawndo? Well, because it has electrolytes. Okay. Like, and that's what plants crave. And it's this circular logic, and it's like it fits in like a
carbon dioxide is what plants
pitch.
crave.
And if you don't understand how enzymes and molecules work, then you keep watering your plants with Brawndo, and you can tell yourself you're getting stoned, but you're like participating in cannabis culture, and you're smoking a joint.
That's not the chemical pathway that's happening. Then it's like I just want a definitive answer on that.
I would say it's you're breaking the molecule. Heat and fire denature proteins and denature. Yes, and so while heating it does produce a little bit, the type of heat and pressure it takes. There's a $50,000 to $100,000 decarboxylation machine that compresses the resin, and under certain circumstances that will accelerate the process of decarboxylation. So it's called activated. Some people call it activated. Some people call it cured. And cured can refer to a physical curing, like the plant dries out and becomes smokable. But there's a chemical curing, and I'm not talking about curing it with chemicals. I'm saying it's an internal process to any medicinal herb. Yeah, it's like kimchi, essentially. It's like what they're serving now is they're calling it kimchi, and you open it up and you're like, this is just cabbage and water. Yeah, I want kimchi. And so there's like a process that's like missing from a lot of the commercial cannabis now, which means, again, it's a great opportunity for the underground market to reclaim.
But are the normies right? Are the normies right? Because like they tell you that marijuana is addictive, and that even though the studies show that it's not physically addictive, you know, if you know people that smoke marijuana, they tend to like to smoke marijuana and not want to quit marijuana, and they end up using more THC to relieve their cravings or avoid withdrawal symptoms like insomnia, nausea, and headaches. Right? People claim that they start to feel that stuff without the marijuana.
I'd say it's addictive.
It has negative side effects. If anybody tells you differently, they're lying. That's just how drugs work.
Yeah, I mean, even I would make it more akin to something like social media or video games, or like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, as far as like the difference between a physical craving like you would get with heroin and psychological addiction.
Yes, no, and there are certain medications when you're weaning off of them that you will get physically ill and literally could go into shock or other types of major system if you don't have like certain things to step you down the chemicals are so out of balance. Whereas cannabis does create, and again, you're calling it drugs, but like oxygen and water, I'm addicted to both of those things, and every day I find myself, resisting their use.
Your biochemistry
Ultimately,
can't function without that.
every 5 seconds I take a breath, and so
fully
we have
half of
we have an
Americans.
endocannabinol system.
Like no,
Yeah.
like
Fully
I'm
half
not
of
saying
Americans
that
have tried
drugs are
marijuana.
bad because they're drugs. Like if you take enough
What are you calling
vitamin
drugs? I
B12,
don't even
sorry,
understand
vitamin
what you mean by
B6,
drugs.
niacin, maybe 3. If you take enough niacin, it functions like a drug. If you take enough vitamin D, it functions like a drug. Like there's all sorts of different things that
Psychoactive.
blur the
You think
line
it's
between
psychoactive?
nutrient and drug. Sure,
There's a good
But,
suggestion, Andreas.
like
Psychoactive
when
is
you
a good
take
way to try to
pot
define
into
parameter.
account, like I think the best explanation from it was from that episode of South Park. Like it might balance some people out. I won't argue with that, but it can also, encourage laziness. It can make you okay with not doing something.
How
It
sure
can
are
make
you about
okay with
that?
spending time just sitting on a couch instead of learning a skill, getting good at something that can, benefit you socially and economically in the future. Those are things that you need to
like
consider,
growing weed
especially
and
if you're a
selling
young
it,
person
like
considering
growing really
using
good weed and then
marijuana.
becoming like a
Is there-
millionaire in like 2 years because you grow and sell weed. Again, you're talking about
Dude, nobody. How many people become a millionaire in any business? Seriously,
I think the legalization
weed,
of weed,
good weed
at the core
goes
of
for
it, is
$8,000 a pound.
you know what? If that's your skill, if that's your splinter skill, if that's like the one thing your brain is good at, sure.
You
If
just
you're
have to be able to
really
grow
good,
in a
you got
place where you
real
trust your
green
neighbors not to
thumb,
break
go
in and
for it.
steal.
Well, not Elon Musk. Wow, crazy.
To say that it's
Elton John.
useless and it makes you lazy. I mean, that's
Well,
ridiculous.
I just want to say, Elton. I hadn't thought about it from this perspective pretty much since I was a child. Because as a kid, I remember thinking marijuana was like a drug and it's bad for you, and that they shot Kennedy, like what everyone was told to believe about everything. But then I started meeting people through Women and Men for Medical Marijuana in Santa Cruz, where there were people with cancer, people with like AIDS, people who were dying in the hospital, and we were giving them capsules of marijuana, essentially, like extracted resin, in order to try to help them deal with chemotherapy and to survive.
tar.
And I understand that that's not the same as like a teenager who wants to go to a drive-through and pick up a joint, and that it's not the same as somebody dying of cancer. I understand that, but you know what? There's something there also about trauma that I think people don't anticipate about this generation. There's a reason why so many people were looking for a way out of the trauma to feel something.
Yeah.
What do you think about? What do you think about that, Kurt?
Balance themselves out. But
What do you think about that, Kurt?
Don't tell them
Don't tell them what we're talking about. What do you think? What do you think about that, Kurt? Don't tell them what we're talking about. Oh, your microphone's so quiet. You're fix that cable, bro. Fix that cable.
Can't hear you.
Oh my god, bro.
Oh no.
We're clipping.
We're clipping. Want an XLR?
Let's see.
There we go.
we hear you
nice
now.
and crisp.
I hear you now. All right.
I don't know. I can offer my thoughts about other things, I guess, because I don't have a frame of reference here.
Do you think that what was it about? Marijuana making people lazy or being bad, or I guess Elton John said that legalizing marijuana is one of the greatest mistakes of all time. Discuss.
Okay. Elton John is certainly a character. That's like, honestly, weed culture has really been interesting to observe. Now people are comparing it to like opioids, because like it's, I don't know. My perception of weed, I don't really smoke weed, but it's like we didn't feel that way about, the reversal of prohibition. Like, yeah, there's a ton of people that are alcoholics, and alcohol does, destroy people's lives. But it's to me, it's a similar thing. Like the marijuana itself, to me, it's not that physically addictive. Like, yeah, you can overdo everything, and there are people that bake themselves into a coma every single day, and yeah, they do get physically addicted. But it's because it's primarily because they're not addicted as much to the drug as they are to the fog and the meaning.
Where do you think all the art in this world comes from? You think it comes from like speed freaks? It doesn't.
Well, some of the best bass players I've ever met.
They're pretty prolific.
If you like music,
all I'm saying is I didn't say I'm recommending for or against it. I didn't say it was good or bad. I'm saying there are effects that are positive and negative to this, and to say that there aren't is disingenuous. And if you want to tell somebody whether or not they should be using it. These are things that should be considered.
Unfortunately, the data is inconclusive.
You're entitled
I think
to your
you got to
terrible
go to
opinions, but
Bob
this is why
Saget on
the
this.
farmers think that the city folk are the problem, because this is a plant that has been preserved.
It's not magic.
It's a type of
Wait,
technology that allows you to
what-
be an independent. You don't have to grow tomatoes, or you can be a small sharecropper. You can be a sustainable farmer, and you can make a living once a year going to town and selling your crop.
This is true. I think about that all the time. Imagine a guy in India or a guy in Mexico or somebody whose whole life changed because they could sell this crop. I totally hear you
Actual
there.
Hindu Kush.
Blake, what were you about to say though?
No, I was gonna say, I think at some level you have to go to Bob Saget from Half Baked on this and say, I've seen people smoke dick for suck dick for crack. Have you ever seen anyone suck dick on the street for weed?
Not on the street.
San Francisco gets weird, but
class of addiction. There are some problems that weed can cause, and as a society, we should discuss that. But it's just not the same kind of problem that crack or heroin is.
Right.
I think you should have a warning label on
negative.
it that says it can make you sleepy and lazy, and maybe you might miss out on learning new skills and milestones in life.
But here's the problem with that. There's not a lot of evidence that marijuana actually makes you sleepy or lazy. There are some examples. Seriously, I mean, let's think of it like this: how many friends do you know who actually grow pot? Because all the ones I know work really hard. You know what I mean? A lot of people that work hard and go out every day and surf, and there are certain kinds of people.
There are people who are just like that.
Yeah,
there
are
are
lazy
people who will be like that no matter what they're doing, and then there are people who won't.
So the bad weed that's out there now, with all this the acidic carboxyl group attached to the medicinal bioavailable thing that again used to be.
This is our winery expert of cannabis.
No, so what happens is my blood pressure has been high for the last 5 years, and my whole life my cholesterol, my blood pressure has been fine. But all of a sudden, the cannabis I've been consuming changed, and so now having hypertension and high blood pressure affects the amount of energy one has. And again, if you were trying to,
you don't think that has to do with carbon monoxide and carbon?
That's a good point. Are you smoking it or eating it or using extracts? What's your method of consumption?
At this point, I've given up on flour because I realize it's
good.
It was the frog in a boiling pot. The industry changed a little bit, and the THCA weed that's available in Massachusetts is a little better than the THCA weed that's available in the rest of the place in terms of if you're just looking at the number of delta. But there's still way too much. Whatever I was doing, it was so now I just have a couple of vaporizers, and again, the type of resin, if you get THCA resin, they're going to tell you, well, see, the battery in there heats it and converts it to. No, this is not a $50,000 decarboxylation machine. Sorry, that's not how it works. Okay, and again, if you believe the salesman because you like the color shoes they have on, that's your choice. But that's not true, and it's so that it has to be cured or activated. You could also call it decarboxylated or bioavailable. In the industry, I think we'll eventually pick one of those terms to clarify.
What happens to your blood pressure when you abstain?
And again, you're asking. That's the last time I stopped smoking weed for an extended amount of time. Huh? Well, see, that's the thing is the body stores it in your fat tissue. And so
what I asked.
But there are health benefits to the substance. Consuming it in the right forms can actually increase vasodilation, which we know increases basically really your brain and your body, all the communication points.
Excellent evidence on cannabinoidal regulation of apoptosis, was on autophagy, so white blood cell correction of mutations. This is something,
and specifically weed was meant for glaucoma treatment. That was the one thing. There's intraocular pressure that if you have hypertension or high blood pressure, the medical benefit is you can measure my blood pressure probably if you have a cured, activated, decarboxylated or bioavailable vaporizer and you have a blood pressure cuff on and you take a few hits on it, in theory your blood pressure should go down because as you said, there's a vasodilating.
But your heart rate will go up.
Medicinal version of it.
Your heart rate will go up in response to that, though.
Well, and so what they're finding is there's something called THCV, which is the stimulant version that does have, because again, before they said, sativa will increase your heart rate. Technically, cannabis is a stimulant, but there is a version of the plant now that's very indica, and those two terms are kind of outdated because again, everything's been crossbred and everything. But there's THCV, which is the stuff where it's like hippie crack. That's the stuff where when you smoke it, it's like it's just like you get like fidgety. You want to do art, and that's not the THC Delta 9. It's different than that. And again, that's what just through my study over the past 12.
So
12
all
months,
these health
I've,
benefits
learned.
are definitely striking, but I gotta ask: do you take a daily aspirin?
Well, here's the thing: you can take too much aspirin and die. You're never going to take.
Oh
too
yeah,
much
no,
THC
I didn't
and
mean
die.
too much. I mean just like 100 milligrams a day, baby aspirin, not like a 300
I was,
milligram.
I was for a while. But all right, so let's bring
you
it to
guys
the
know-
next.
good.
And aspirin comes from tree bark, though. You know, again,
Okay,
you're seeing it
yeah.
as like
Well, you can also
Synchronous
synthesize
thing.
it.
No, you brought up the cigarette guy. I have this theory. I want to hear opinions about it. But I think moderate amounts of carcinogens are good for you.
Okay, well, we're not going
You
to be
gotta be
able.
kidding me.
We're not going to be able to scientifically discuss that on a YouTube show, but we could say that I hear your feelings. How about that?
Are
But
you
let's
saying you
let's
could
maybe
microdose
let's even,
radiation?
No, it's
if, as long as it's not medical
now.
advice, you're just talking about the soul. Are you talking about existentialism for the soul? Because you could say it was good for your soul, then maybe.
Okay,
you
if
get away
YouTube
with
is
that
really
on
going to
YouTube.
censor us, or
Are we
whatever,
talking like organic carcinogens, elemental carcinogens, radioactive carcinogens? Like
all
which
right,
kind?
Teratogens. Teratogens are exciting, right?
Oh
I'm
fuck!
not-
Yeah, those don't even hurt you. Those hurt the next generation.
So
Let's talk
on an
about the
episode of House,
Kardashians instead of carcinogens. No, sorry.
on an episode of House, House prescribed someone cigarettes for irritable bowel syndrome. Not that House
it
is
works
an
for
authority.
schizophrenia too, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
there's a
that wasn't the
colonial era-
carcinogens. That wasn't the carcinogens he was prescribing. Those
Yeah.
happened to be a consequence of.
Yeah.
He thought the quickest and easiest way to get them over the irritable bowel syndrome
didn't make
was with
vapes
the
back then.
nicotine.
yeah, I
and the
probably
If we
Atrazine
made that
on
episode
Google
today,
doesn't
he
mean
would
it's
prescribe
true.
him this.
But the
So,
phrase
all right,
Probably
let him go.
gave
smoke
Let
up
him
a
go.
bad example.
Let Kurt cook. All right.
All right, so I'll dance around the whole YouTube thing as much as I can. But let's say something like they say processed stuff is bad for you. Smoked meats are bad for you. I actually don't think. I think there's something about the cell restoration process. Cells actually need to replicate, and I think there's a lot of theories behind that. So it's like having certain types of carcinogens. I'm suspicious. I'm suspicious about their potential health benefits because, well, let's just isolate it down to pure feeling. Pure feeling. How do you feel after you have a smoked meat? You feel amazing.
Yeah, I like smoking meat.
Healthy body. Healthy
all of our
mind.
clothes and couches have fire retardant on them in particles that are so small that they're the amount of carcinogens people that shop at IKEA and like Target have in their system. Talk about forever chemicals, and we have no idea.
Like the fresher a piece of plastic off the assembly line, like the more VOCs it's like shooting out constantly just by the nature of like creating a plastic item. Like avoid
the
plastics
concept
in your
of
life.
blowing
really
smoke
well
up
for a
someone's
long
ass.
time.
It's an actual folk remedy where there's a doctor who prescribed tobacco for his wife. The husband had hemorrhoids or something, and the prescription was to like puff the tobacco smoke in her mouth and blow it up her husband's ass because again, it's a vasoconstrictor, and that might be where that phrase came from. Like, are you blowing smoke up my ass? But
boofing nicotine sounds like it could
mean,
be a solution.
I recently got an expensive salami, and I thought, oh my god, it's covered in mold. That's crazy, right? And this stuff, what they do is they slice it, and you wait a few days, and then the front and back sides, not just the rings, the front and back sides get covered with white mold. So you have moldy sausage.
It grows that fast, bro.
Age.
Awesome.
Yeah. And it sounds insane because you're like, wait, mold? I shouldn't eat mold, let alone mold on meat, right? Meaty mold, that sounds crazy. But apparently there's a reason why this is good. And this happens to be penicillium. It's a kind of penicillium. So obviously penicillin's known as a medicine in general.
Pretty much what that does is it makes sure that no bacteria can grow on it because it's fungus. It's a eukaryote, not a prokaryote. And also those take up the space so that nothing harmful can ever actually take hold on that surface.
But Parmesan, is it drugs?
So
is that drugs?
So
you're so
sure. I remember
is that a drug?
So I ate well. Okay, this is not medical advice.
The salami is pretty fucking good, but I don't think it's. I don't think you could call it a drug.
I ate salami that had that stuff on both sides, not just on the rings. And everyone else, this is not medical advice. Everyone else around me was getting influenza B. and I was the only one one of the few people I know who doesn't have influenza B right now in the area. So I
I
feel
would
like
be
there may be
surprised if there were antiviral properties to that salami.
I would
but
be
there's
too.
definitely
I would be too. It's
bacteria.
probably a bunch of nonsense. Don't buy it. And then
Maybe
what was
I
the
mean
other
honestly.
point?
Wait a
When I
second.
ate the
Even
salami, I
that,
felt drunk.
there's-
I was like,
there's
did I drink
not-
something? And I didn't.
There's actually something there to that though. If you just look at something that seems to be not clean, your immune system will kick on. Like your brain has a way of activating that directly without having to use a chemical in between. So just seeing that and not being familiar with it, because I've been eating stuff like that since I was a kid. If you saw that, weren't familiar with it, and be like, yeah, I'll try it anyway. Like I have to get over this mental hump. That mental hump definitely kickstarted your immune system and maybe could have prevented you from getting sick later on.
See, I feel like Sean's never eaten a lot of mushrooms on purpose before, just by the way he talks about things. Because that's your experience. It's
I love
cool.
mushrooms. I love it. You ever cook a good bunch of oyster mushrooms, portobello
seeing
mushrooms,
something like,
even little white pearl mushrooms
Like,
sometimes.
here we go. I'm not saying that's a good thing to do in general, but that's why it's important. Like you can't really overdose on mushrooms. They can make you trip the light fantastic for a little too long. And like cannabis again,
their guts out.
You're not gonna. I guess you could Jimi Hendrix
you
yourself or something.
Well, oh, you're muted, Andreas.
I'll go ahead. I'll ask the question after.
I was just going to start to migrate the conversation towards the psychological or psychic effects of these substances that we're talking about, because we're kind of dancing around it. We're talking a lot about the physiological or sometimes even negative consequences of consuming these substances. But
I would say sleepy and lazy are psychic.
Yeah, sure. But I think that there is like a certain kind of elevated consciousness that can happen. Like I remember when I was a teenager, I was hanging out with a bunch of ne'er-do-wells, and we were all, passing the blunt around. And I had to stop because I was getting too high. And one of these guys was like, "Oh man, that's like saying you're getting too smart or whatever." And I was like, there kind of is such a thing. Like you could get so smart it starts to feel bad and be unenjoyable.
Yeah, there was an episode of House about that also.
Interesting.
When someone older than you says, "Are you getting smart with me?" That, right? There's such a thing as being too smart. To some reason.
Yeah.
All right. You're trying to be smart.
The next thing is like regarding all of this, like what about things that kill you? So David Lynch, famous director, made a lot of movies that we like and TV shows that people have seen, like Twin Peaks. Very cool guy. He stopped being able to smoke like a couple of years ago, and then it was like, his will to live, I think, was connected to that. But also he died. So I wonder about it. What do you think about his choice to smoke and then die rather than to not do any drugs and idealistically live a longer time, right? To give up the smoking and the drug. I mean, to just be a sober person, wouldn't he have lived a lot longer? Or do you think it's worth it that he kind of traded some of his lifetime maybe for smoking, perhaps? Which is what they said.
What is sober though? But okay, yeah.
Which brand?
Because some people have an imbalance, and so it feels like they're on drugs unless they're on drugs. It's like we understand that lactate is a thing, and some people, like, we've diverged enough as a species where some people can process that protein in their stomach, and some people can't. And so the same thing is true with our neurobiology. And for some people, smoking weed might make them feel like they're crazy, and for other people, that just like helps them get to level. Like and some people when they take Adderall, they act like a crackhead, and other people it just helps them read a book,
like a fast zombie. Yeah, no, like some people do need a drug to balance them out because there is maybe some sort of imbalance of chemicals or behavior or just something that is corrected by that. If someone's life is objectively improved and they're working with a doctor, there's no reason they shouldn't be taking something like that.
I mean, there's a lot of ritual behind the act of smoking, and as far as like consuming nicotine, it actually does help with short and long-term memory. So there is, I don't know, some benefit to it.
There's a reason we have a receptor for it.
And now for people with PTSD, though, they kind of don't want the whole long-term memory thing. They're much happier living in the here and now, looking forward. And there are certain substances that sure, their short-term memory might, and again, the question is, how is it processing through their organs? Is it sustainable for them to continue to take the drug? But if they're having flashbacks of something that happened, and they're just this is the week where they're staying up in bed all day just watching the terrible things in their mind's eye happen over and over, then weed might not be great for that person because it's stimulating. It's a and so
especially if your brain is if your brain is wired for trauma, certainly. But we also have learned of substances that can help increase neuroplasticity and can sort of rewire a brain away from trauma. And
in certain doses, nicotine is considered nootropic, right?
Yeah, that, or psilocybin or MDMA, what have you.
Well, even in large doses, nicotine is psychedelic. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I haven't taken a large enough dose yet, but I believe you.
January 20th, tomorrow, would have been David Lynch's 79th birthday.
Damn. This is how I countered the whole anti-weed never, because again, I'm not sure where Sean, he seems very liberal-minded about the use and experimentation with substances and their utility, but how do you treat them? I am. And again, when you say a doctor, Sean, do you mean by like in your country, or like by whose standards?
Oh no, when I say a doctor, I mean like substances like amphetamines. Like if you need,
you're still using the word doctor. I'm not concerned about what you're classifying as a drug. I'm concerned about what authority you personally think is the one that is allowed to grant the usage of those things. And
it's true though.
But there's a lot of
pharma likes to give you synthetic amphetamines.
I'm not big on
generally around the world
that appeal to authority. In fact, I don't like authority that much. But most of the doctors I met, I don't go to a second time. But the doctors that I do go to are people that I respect and people that I know are smarter than me. People who sit there and answer all of my questions and make sure I understand all of the things that they're recommending that I do. Those are good doctors. And if a doctor is good like that, and they're making sure that you're going to be in good health and your heart can take another bottle of Adderall prescribed to you before they give it to you, then they're doing the right thing. You know what I mean? You don't really have the equipment and the qualifications to like quantify that yourself at home. So like if you're going to be taking a drug like that could maybe damage your heart, especially like Adderall, then you should have a doctor making sure that you're physically capable of continuing taking that before
that you're like sleeping occasionally, at least,
Yeah, you need to have somebody like watching stuff like that. Like pot isn't that serious, but like when if you're going to decide to smoke pot, you should have an honest, informed picture of the positives and negatives that you can expect from it.
See, and Blake asked the question, who are the cops supposed to shoot? And it's like if you're driving and operating machinery when you're intoxicated, and the problem with marijuana is there's no test to see how stoned you are, whereas see a fun rule, I think if you're using cannabis, then when you're driving, you shouldn't have any alcohol in your system because maybe it accelerates
just driving like an asshole should just be a fucking crime outright, regardless of what you're on. How's that?
I mean, good luck enforcing those laws.
What's up?
So nice we were talking about. Nice to see you too, bro. It's good to see you. We were talking about David Lynch.
The weed, though.
David Lynch is the guy you called the smoking guy. You know his name. You know he did Twin Peaks. Have you heard of the show Twin Peaks?
I've heard of it. I never watched it.
Yeah, I could tell. No, I'm just kidding.
But a lot about it for some reason. What is that?
It's a really important show, actually. I mean, we did a thing on it at one point. Twin Peaks Lodge. Good point. Twin Peaks Lodge.
What's it about?
Yeah, be careful looking up Twin Peaks Lodge because there's also like a Hooters knockoff place called Twin Peaks.
I mean, if it's
Hooters, you have to have the moderate
insectoid.
It's interesting. It's very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I've never quite seen that before. That's pretty cool.
What's with that?
It's a very important show. I mean, we'll talk about it at some point in our lives. He did a lot of really interesting work that put symbology in front of people, starting with Eraserhead, and he had to take projects that they felt were being too exoteric, like Jodorowsky's Dune, and make him a more esoteric Dune. And he's an esotericist as well as an outward film director, but he also died after smoking. Where's my David Lynch post, man? I was just on that David Lynch.
He also died after drinking water and breathing air.
True, but he had cancer and he couldn't. I was following him for the last few years, and he couldn't smoke after a certain point because he had some lung cancer problem from smoking, and then he couldn't go outside, and he was no longer healthy enough to direct films. And so very quickly his health deteriorated, theoretically, as they say, because of smoking. But I mean, how do you feel about that he would trade some of his life away for what he thought of as, like existential fun that was destroying him?
But art comes from a place of suffering usually. 90% of the time, any halfway decent art comes from a place of suffering. And sorry, maybe that question wasn't directed at me. Might be.
No,
I'll
it's
get
okay.
you. I'll get you for this.
I think that's a good contributing answer. To be honest, I think what if you ask a lot of these people? Some people, of course, they do want to hold on to their lives a little bit longer. I think our culture encourages that. But if you would ask a lot of your favorite, philosophers or artists who were smokers at the end of their life, like, hey, do you regret smoking? I'll say, fuck no. Like, I'm going to do what I want. This is what I wanted to do with my life. And, I just liked smoking and doing art. A lot of people do enjoy that. I believe that's probably a response you'd get from someone like Christopher Hitchens, probably one of my favorite writers when I started, like just reading in my 20s. It didn't seem like he had any regrets about his decisions, and he knew it was bad for his health. He was probably a little overweight at the end of his life. Always was carrying a little bit of I think it was either scotch or whiskey. He would almost always bring to his interviews, so that was kind of one of his trademarks. But yeah, it's like people. At some level, they're free to make their own choices, and if they think, for some people, nicotine, it'll be like caffeine. It'll just give them that boost that they want to just, keep working on what they want to create. And so it's like, I don't know. I do have suspicions over whether or not all unhealthy quote unquote behaviors are necessarily rooted in nihilism. They aren't always. I think generally it is good to try to see how little you can, how much you can live without, but that your path to enlightenment might not be everyone else's path to enlightenment. And I think that's there's this big great face of God that we can't always fully fathom or comprehend, and that's why judge not lest you be judged. The same old story, the same old cycle. You know how it goes. But yeah, that's my response.
Yeah, I don't think nicotine itself is so much of the problem. I don't think nicotine itself is so much of the problem as much as the tar and like benzoaprine and all that comes along with it in smoking. Because if you really think about it, smoking is just like one of the dirtiest ways to vape the chemical that you want to inhale. So if you have another way of heating it up that's not going to be combustion, or if the combustion is just somehow physically separated from the chemical, then you've got something different going on. Maybe it's not still ideal to put something other than air in your lungs, but better than actually smoking it.
Yeah, that's another perspective too, is like theoretically one reason you want to take care of your body is because if you want, it's not just taking about care of your own consciousness. It's just like every cell in your body is something that wants to thrive and be healthy as long as it can. So that I think that's a pretty good argument for wanting to be healthy and trying to stay,
Actually, that's incorrect.
Lung damage is specifically unique though, because that doesn't
the cells
heal.
that live forever are the cancerous tumor ones. The human cells regularly have a scheduled like dying off thing, and the problem is when the code that gets changed is that they live forever and then they grow, and that's called a tumor or cancer. But close, So I don't mean to be an asshole.
I mean, meanwhile, Russell Nelson, he's 100, nearly 101 now, and he's running around, which kind of blows my mind. This dude was a surgeon who is now the president of the Mormon Church, and he's allegedly never done any drugs. And I don't know, man. What if these guys live to be 120 and just keep running around? Is that something you think is more worth it than dying young?
I mean, it does look like he could pass for 70 in his defense.
He could pass for 70, and they're compared
not
to
a modern 70. I'm sorry, I know.
Not a modern 70.
Like
no,
late 60s, early 70s, and they look
good.
like much younger than that. Sorry.
Thank God, right? Yeah, no, I agree. I agree that now there are younger 70s than ever before, but this used to be this is kind of the way someone with cancer who's dying I think aging is something very relative. It's starting to sound like, and if you can delay the effects of aging, then what exactly are you
That's the
trading?
important thing. Yeah. Because,
I mean,
what do you
time
do
dilates
when you
around
think
dense
like
objects,
that?
right?
That could be true too. Maybe he's just dilating.
And the only thing that's like exciting about living to 150 is you like get to watch the news. Like, who's going to be president 40 years from now? I mean,
Well,
right?
you
Isn't
also
it
get to
so
watch your
intriguing?
family grow up. If you have a big family, that's probably pretty badass. If you're like 150 and you have great grandkids that are like in college.
Yeah, but what if you end up watching all of the people that you care about die over time? Because most people don't live to 150, but some do.
Randomly
Well,
showing a
I
picture
feel
of
like
Bush
if
doing
you're
that
part of the
story.
generation that first does that, then like your kids and grandkids will also have that privilege. So it's
It might just be a random mutation, and you just have the gene, and you live that long. I mean, how else?
oh, that's not what I
You
was
never
thinking
know.
about. I was thinking like if medicine accelerated to the point where everybody could do that, and then just like
Big
everybody
difference.
lives for
Big
5
difference.
generations instead of 3.
I do have a
What
soft
about-
theory that microplastics are mummifying us, but who did I cut off? I cut somebody off.
I was going to ask you a question though, Andrew, because you had talked earlier about the egg-shaped UFO craft and
Yes.
Ross Kotar. You want to talk about this a bit? Cool.
Yeah, he had a former Air Force person. I don't think he was a pilot, but he ended up getting drafted into special operations and covert projects, and became a contractor for a private entity that has special military access. And I don't know if he got the footage, but he reported transporting an egg, a seamless 20-foot egg-shaped UAP by helicopter. There was another whistleblower that offered up footage. I wish I could give you the timestamp on that in his interview. There it is. And yeah, he's got the paper trail to sort of substantiate a lot of his claims as far as his credentials, who he worked for, and his military career. And he started an organization with some other whistleblowers and former special ops guys to sort of bring about to, keep rolling out this disclosure thing, because there are these dueling factions within the shadow government even. Some are for disclosure, some are against it. The ones who are for it tend to be the ones who want to uphold the actual values of the Constitution of the US, at least, and actually serve the best interests of the people, while others seem to want to gatekeep this information and technology to serve essentially financial interests and the quadrillion-dollar military industrial complex investments that keep foreign wars going and all that jazz.
Yeah, it trips me out lately, like how much the government keeps secret. Like they'll just like not tell you about anything, even if it's completely innocuous. I feel like they do that so that you don't start getting worried about the one thing they won't answer questions about. But yeah, like they've been doing that an awful lot lately, haven't they?
Yeah, information is power. That's why they tried to stop the TikTok thing, because we had a peer-to-peer information network. If there was news going on halfway across the country or halfway across the world, anyone with a phone in the app would be reporting it, and then 2 weeks later it would show up on Instagram Reels and Facebook.
Wow.
And
But you felt like you had like a 2-week advance notice of the memes that were coming somehow, almost. Or...
Oh yeah, for sure. It was
Wow.
like you could I was on TikTok. I rebelled.
They're called
against
las noticias alternativas, meaning that las noticias is the news, and alternativas, and the word nativo is in there actually, but
Mhm.
it's just it's the alternate news stream. It's the channel that is either always.
So wait, what did you hear about 2 weeks early on TikTok?
Yeah. It was like the radio person on the Warriors movie. What I hear 2 weeks, usually just memes and stuff, or just weird any sort of viral thing that would manage to trickle itself down to the meta platforms. Generally started on TikTok, and that's why Mark Zuckerberg poured millions of dollars into trying to remove the platform, which and there are rumors that Meta will acquire it, But in the process of trying to shut it down, a bunch of people ended up going to. Have you guys heard about this other app, RedNote? It's kind of been hitting the news a little bit.
I was gonna bring it up. I'm glad you know. Yeah, I've been using RedNote for a while, so I thought it was really funny that this shows up. Basic point is liberals are flocking to RedNote, an app controlled by China that's named after Mao's Little Red Book. This is like the crazy. Like, what do you freaking think? Obviously, it's Little Red Note. Come on, people. Turns out.
So again, if you owned either of these apps, the idea is, what is the algorithm controlling people or influencing them to do? Is they teaching them things? Is it positive or negative?
Hold on. Yeah, let me explain.
People build their algorithm.
This is the one for China, though, and the one for TikTok. TikTok had a dynamic national algorithm. If things were in English, feed them vegetable porn that humans like in America, right? Basically, it's our fault. We can deal with that. If it's in Chinese, censor it out. Make sure that they don't, because they don't want that crap. But this is the way RedNote's always been, because only Chinese people were using it. So they immediately ban LGBTQ woke content. They don't allow any inappropriate outfits or any of the weird liberal, teenage underage girl dancing videos.
Oh yeah, there is none of that.
In the Christian,
but I have
seen about it like a Christian, Andreas.
I've seen
if you owned it, what would you use it for? Like, say something positive, because you can try to say what should do value judgment.
This is why they're so pissed. Here's a comment quoted, translated. After seeing, this is a Chinese guy talking about seeing white girls, or Western girls rather, that are dancing in their skimpy outfits for the first time. After seeing foreign girls, I'm no longer interested in domestic ones, right? So this is a major concern for China. China's already has the lowest birth rate in the world, and if they get suckered into
wait. Can we set up an exchange program?
I mean, right? Yeah. I mean, this
they're
is a
already
fake post.
clowning on passport bros that are lurking on RedNote, but I don't. I've seen LGBTQ people on Redbook. I think it's okay to be that kind of person. Don't just don't be making out with your partner on there. I guess they frown on sexual stuff, like overtly sexual.
There's a lot.
Stuff. I've seen their midriffs though. I've seen people. Some of the more provocative things. I guess
China's birth rate is the lowest in the world. It's lower than Scandinavia.
Good. How many people already live there? Come on.
Less than 1 billion now. That's
less
than
China's
been
It'd
lying about their population.
In Shanghai, right?
China's been lying about their population, and they have less people than they've ever had. The people that live there are refusing to work. Many percentages, I think it's like 80% of people, are not having kids. And this is not going to last. In 20 years, they're going to have to import new people to replace Chinese people for China.
I can tell you, there's hundreds of thousands who are ready to go there because of their positive experiences they're having on RedNote.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, people are calling it either or. I forget what the actual Mandarin name is. There's people learning Mandarin.
Okay, so
Mandarin in 4 days.
What would Andreas use TikTok for? He would use it to promote AI. What would American Time Machine use it for? I think he would use it to help people not just dance to music, but actually make music collaboratively somehow through the app.
He's trying to woke the
I was going to say something about how to get a better six-pack and a tighter butt or something. And then Vega, I think you'd advertise your business or something. And I would use it to get Joe Biden elected in 2028. I want to see that man recover fully and get his vigor and vim back. And he's going to get up there and he's going to be the candidate.
What's really amazing about it? It's not okay on TikTok. It's become a commercial platform. Every fifth thing that you look up is someone selling something. On RedNote, it's just people sharing information. It's not, people aren't selling anything. They're not turning themselves into products. They're just exchanging information. And there's been a lot of discourse about what's your income? How much do your groceries cost? How much of my
all white people? All white people stop using RedNote. You bring pervert and slut behavior to RedNote. No good. I know this is fake, but look at all the white slut already spread slut virus on RedNote. Shake arm fat like country flag. Slut make America most disgust. Shake arm fat like country flag is my favorite line of all time.
See, what you're missing though is that in Chinese, this is a bad translation. In Chinese, that shit rhymes, and it's It's like a multi-word diss, and it comes through as like broken English, and we're like getting their opinion. But again, you should have heard her say it out loud. You know,
there are so many Chinese people on Redbook who speak better English than Americans. It's insane. Like some of them even do it in like country accents. It's hilarious. They're really
I think
advanced.
I might be ready for some serious. What?
What's going on?
This is epic rap battles of history in Chinese.
Dude.
Oh snap!
I feel communist right now. What's happening to me? Oh my god. They're seizing me by my means of reproduction. Oh my god. All right, I'm sold. Whatever they're doing, let's wear their outfits. That's it. Let's goose step with those guys. Red note. That's way more base than TikTok.
And you know it's really interesting because there was like a very huge right-leaning conservative base on TikTok, and a lot of them actually migrated over to Redbook as well. And
it's just gonna be extreme, bro.
Some of them are really starting to figure out like, oh wow, like some of that propaganda was actually just propaganda. It was BS. It was
What propaganda exactly?
Oh, just about like how bad conditions are in China.
Yeah, and how good conditions are in America. That's the one that really gets them. When they're like, wait, living in a trailer eating macaroni and cheese made with fertilizer and petroleum chemicals isn't the best lifestyle available in the world?
So a Chinese person was saying Americans think that they're free because they're free to have an opinion, but they don't have freedom of choice.
Well, again, if we're living in that bunker because all the nukes go off because someone tried to stop the war in Ukraine and Russia or something, it didn't work, and all the missiles landed here instead. So like, I'll eat, the
this
mac
is
and
where
cheese.
The eggs come in. This is where the eggs come in.
If that's what they're going to feed the kids in the bunker, I'll test it first, I guess.
No, I'm talking about the eggs in the sky, the
20-foot
20-foot eggs with no seams that are piloted by a superior consciousness.
Oh, those eggs, my bad. Yeah. So have you heard of, I've heard them called gravitic. Have you heard of the term gravitic drones? Because that's interesting.
I heard about that, and what I understand about physics, that's not how gravity works. Like, you can't propel a craft from inside.
Okay, Sean. Yeah.
Have you heard about the quantum?
The implication of it, though, is that these objects could be fixed in space more than Earth, and because they're spinning so fast, again, these could even be space-bound objects. It could be a giant sapphire crystal that formed in some cluster nebula far away, and when it passes through Earth, it sometimes just like bores through Earth because it exists where it exists, and Earth is moving through its path, and it's like the immovable object and the unstoppable force. And again, if we can create these things, the scary thing is if you create a big enough gravitic drone, it doesn't just like hover and move when you want it to. It could all of a sudden just like start sinking into the ground, and it went down. We don't know where it went. There's just a hole, and it might have gone to the other side of the Earth. You're like calling,
could even do it
like China being like, guys, look out for this thing. I don't know.
It doesn't necessarily even need to create a hole. It could be transmedium, the same way that we see the ships going seamlessly from the sky into the ocean. What's his name? Jake Barber said that he saw one going from the sky into the ground and then come back out. So it's like the material density is nothing to these objects because they sort of create their own pocket of space-time.
What?
Wild.
What does that mean?
Yeah, no, right. Because if it's a gravitic gravity is the space-time barrier. Or
they call
the material on which that So if you're making a gravitic drone, in theory, time could slow down as you got closer.
Sean,
almost like a black hole.
You have to imagine that if everything had a local radio effect that was causing its space-time, right? Its space-time is actually dependent on a star or on some synthetic form of radiation, creating some sort of radio to vibrate that that collection of atoms into cohesive frequency. Then another effect from a different radio system would change that non-local space-time that's being experienced by that cohesion. Oh, I thought that was Sean. Dang.
No. Sorry, my kid's playing with a toy.
No, that was bad.
He can do impersonations, but that one would have been impressive.
So,
Well, when
all
you
right.
think about it, matter is mostly empty space anyway. Sorry, Andreas, go ahead.
No, you got it. Exactly. Continue.
Yeah, I mean, because matter is mostly empty space, if you're sort of like detuned to, I think you were saying like the local sort of arrangement of atomic alignment or whatever, you could just slip in between the spaces, right? Or you could
Yeah, and so
easily
we have an
do that.
idea of continuity because a star or some form of radio is causing a change, which the frequency is repeating, and that orbital frequency repeat is what we're calling our time, our change between this arrangement and that arrangement. But it's the same material, just rearranged. And it's not even rearranged that much because it's based on a continuity. It doesn't need to be. We could eventually invent some cool technology, let's say, that makes it so that we can magically go from one arrangement to another arrangement without any sort of continuity. But right now, we're using continuity to decide this is the nature of things. This happens, which causes that to happen, right? And also that's dependent on our shared radio, the spectrum, the Schumann frequencies, and also probably Sol Invictus, whatever, the sun that we're using that's causing radiation could very well be the clock, right?
Yeah, because everything we're measuring is based off of like initial conditions, the Big Bang. We're basing all of our theories of like physics, whether it be macro or micro, atomic or quantum or whatever, off of that arrangement. Everything is sort of relative to how those things are mathematically.
But maybe in like 20
predestined.
years, maybe in 20 years we have technology that lets us change that arrangement, and we're now using the arrangement that's natural to us. We're calling it natural, but it's just that's the system we're in. But you probably could arrange elements however you wanted to and figure out a way to arrange them back exactly the way or very close to and arrange similar to the way they were in a past, right?
That would
With
probably be
powerful-
like something like a really high resolution MRI where you could literally control where each individual atom ended up rather than having to just align them all to a field and then measure them.
Well, I was like, stop
What
the
I
war
like
in the
about-
skies.
And it would,
What I like
be
about the
powered by
concept of-
consciousness.
So Vega, you were
What?
talking about like this again, this giant egg-shaped craft, and then the intellectual exercise. It's like flat Earth. How would you measure it? And with the eggs, it's what kind of technology could you fit inside of an enclosed space that somehow isn't emitting anything or consuming anything that's not already within that space, such that it's the type of thing where it's a demonstration of Newton's laws of motion, where if you push it, that thing will keep moving in a straight line until something else stops it. And there's a certain amount of inertia. It's like almost like an ideal gas problem in chemistry, but instead you're talking about friction and mu, and there could be industrial applications. If you can create a floating thing, and now that's a bearing for a flywheel. In the basement of a lot of hospitals, there's these things that are the size of refrigerators, and inside are these massively heavy metal drums, and they're spinning on a metal axis, but that giant drum of metal is not actually touching anything. It's floating on a maglev bearing. And then if the power ever cuts, those things have little friction brakes on them, and it starts breaking out electricity that again can then be recombined so that someone can be restarting a heart from that outlet, and it's still keeping the
Oh, it's a
unit
flywheel with a
online.
generator.
And right. And those systems, almost are never used. But if they're not there, you have a major situation anytime the power gets cut. And so you test them regularly. And what's up?
Oh, I was just going to say, you said that such and such technology needs to exist within the physical confines of this 20-foot egg. But when you're dealing with something that can manipulate the shape of time, so to speak, like through the power of an extreme high level of consciousness, that sort of those spatial confines don't really exist, because there are people, and this could be made up, but there are people who purport to have been there are abductees who say that the interior of some crafts far exceeded what they could what they perceived to be the shape and size of the craft that they were being abducted by when they saw it from the outside. And also there was also the time lost thing, which makes sense when you consider that, these ships are reported to sort of like function in a space-time bubble and time dilation and all that jazz.
Now, wait, that happened to abductees, right? They saw impossible, physically impossible spaces.
Yeah, you get into a van and it's the size of a football field inside. Yeah.
Now, just to be fair, the CIA is known. The CIA is known to have dosed people with LSD before.
Yeah,
Sure. It can expand someone's consciousness
and
into
if you
a
watch
false...
Mission,
That's
and
what
if you
like a
watch Mission
K-hole feels
Impossible,
like, right?
they also psyop people all kinds of ways. If you watch Mission Impossible from the 80s, you can see like the way the government always does, like, let's make a fake bar, let's make a fake airport, let's put them in a fake van, and like we'll freak them out. Like obviously that's the point with the mask in Mission Impossible. Every time they love to make you think something's happening that's not happening. That's true. Just for the sake of what Sean's trying to say.
Yeah, it could be an elaborate...
Yeah, it could be theater.
It could be a moon landing. Sure, why not?
Sure. However, there seems to be a lot of information about this anomalously large interiors inside of small spaces, right? That you go into a small little room, or there's a small box inside. There's a giant room inside. UFOs with extremely large anomalous interiors, UAPs, right?
Yeah, it's a locker in a train station at the end of Men in Black 2 or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
But so that was just, you know what I mean? It could be bullshit, sure. But like that's what people are saying, whether or not they believe it or not, whether or not that was information that they were fed, is up for debate. But in theory, that could solve the issue of this egg needing spatially more technology than we could see from the outside.
Now, would it also be possible that the egg could just be a totally inert lump of metal, and they're just experimenting with magnetic levitation with it from the ground, seeing how far up they can get it? Maybe they have some technology that can generate a magnetic field somewhat remotely.
Here's the
That
thing
seems
that
more plausible than of self-propelled sealed objects.
I think the way that they're constructed, because these ones are said to not have any seams. Like human beings don't know how to do that yet, because everything that we've replicated of their technology it's been like a nuts and bolts thing.
If it doesn't open, it could just be a solid lump of metal.
I mean, how would
die cast it?
Also, there's from an architectural standpoint, there's a temple in India where there's a giant lodestone. It's a metallic, it's an iron, rich stone that is supported at the top of the tower, and the supports underneath it look like toothpicks, and it doesn't look like they're strong enough to hold that up. And in reality, the understanding from the Discovery Channel bit I watched on it was that there's an electromagnetic force emanating from the ground right there. And actually, that's like a stone where if you have metal, like even humans have metal in our blood and stuff, that stone doesn't need it doesn't weigh as much for some reason in that specific area. And that's why they built a temple there. When we look at a lot of these buildings now, they're almost a kilometer high, and it's just like a metal toothpick sticking out of the ground. That thing's being held in place by electromagnetic forces. It almost has to be, whether by accident or not. It's
a kilometer high
it could
building,
be built
like
on
like a skyscraper.
It's like if there were a bunch of metal shavings and you like walked across a carpet with a balloon, and like hold it up, or like a more powerful magnetic thing. That's what our cities look like. There's little spikes of metal that come up out of the ground,
like a Pharaoh field,
straight up in the ground. But
yeah, of course. Yeah, sure. I mean, like I'm willing to entertain all sorts of different possibilities, and like what the actual truth is yet to be revealed. I'm just going off of what this guy said in this interview that he did, this whistleblower who used to, run special operations. and his experience with them, other people experiencing, seeing them floating around. Now, whether or not it's human beings with all sorts of crazy reverse engineered technology shooting special sound waves at an egg to make it float and move around and change colors or whatever, sure, yeah, it could be that. Could it be some sort of superior intelligence that can interface with matter because their level of consciousness is beyond human understanding? Also equally possible in my mind. But I hope that it's a superior intelligence thing, because if it's just people messing around with technology from these superior intelligences that are choosing to remain concealed, that's less hopeful for me. And I try to sort of like move in the direction of things that bring some kind of optimism.
I don't
Isn't
think
that like the
encountering
magician's code is you never reveal your hand, so to speak, or I don't know.
I don't
Some
think
people.
encountering a superior intelligence would be anything positive for humanity. I think they would treat us like cattle. They would treat us like ants in the way. They wouldn't see us as equals. They wouldn't
Sure,
see.
some
They would look
might.
at us like animals.
I think some might. Sure, there are people, there are human beings who treat other people that way, and there are human beings who don't treat people that way. There's probably just as much variety and the infinite possibilities of alternate species that could be observing and playing some kind of weird chess game with ours. Who knows?
No, but like, what if we went to like another planet and we started looking around and we didn't see anything we recognized as life, and then we started just doing some engineering, building stuff on it, and then we realized, oh wait a second, wow, the rocks that we've been breaking down and like destroying to build our foundations in, these things are alive and conscious, and they have been this entire time. Like, that's a risk there too. If it has
we know that
absolutely no way
already.
to defend against us.
We know that all of the soil has billions and billions, hundreds of billions of lives in it, and we're just destroying the soil or letting it live. We already know that. We do it all the time.
If there's an intelligence there that we haven't recognized and we're just grinding it like
We
it's a
don't.
resource.
We don't recognize. We understand it's there, and yet we don't recognize it. We literally dehumanize it and say that this is just billions and billions and billions, hundreds of billions.
Yeah,
of other
the only
kinds of
chemical
species
process that has any
that we don't
sanctity
care
is the
about.
one that occurs inside of a human cell.
We're really racist. Humans are extremely
Yeah.
racist. I mean, it's one of the big concerns is between
And species,
environmentalists,
yeah.
ecological.
If there was if there was an
We're so
alien
vain.
creature,
That's what I mean.
if there was an alien thing,
That's
just
what
like
I mean
an
by
alien
that.
form of life, why would it even be a bilateral animal? Like, why would it have bilateral symmetry? Like something.
Not all humans are racist. Not all humans are racist. A lot of humans are environmentalists, but a lot of human racists don't like environmentalists. Humanists,
But as far as
hate
other animals that groom themselves the way that humans do, again, we're vain, and it forced us to have social. We have to trust someone to pick the mites out of our back. And there's like birds that do have this like what is it, symbiotic relationship, and they live on the back of the bison and they eat the but like primates in particular, we come from, if we are on that lineage, if we are to believe, not that we came from apes or that we're headed towards, but that we're on the primate branch. If you look at other baboons, they have huge teeth and claws, and yet they still trust each other. All of them, their fur is pristine if they live in a social group, and that takes a lot. That's instinct that's so deeply embedded in, because the way elephants charge each other, but they never actually collide because it never is advantageous to engage in physical conflict. And humans get it twisted. Again, we have thin skin, literally, and again it's the ego.
I would imagine an elephant would
gets out
truck
of
a
control
smaller
in
animal,
species,
though.
I think.
Like, if a human being was standing in the way of an elephant and he was real pissed off, I'm sure an elephant would probably send you flying like a football.
Sure, yeah, no, I meant when it's charging other elephants generally.
Yeah, they do that as a performative.
No, I've been on. There are the guys that work with them, and they put themselves in between the tourists on the safari and the elephants because they've known those elephants since they were little, and their herd behavior was always to
dude, what
charge,
the hell?
and then they never actually stomped the humans.
Yeah, but if
they
it
do
was a
stomp them, they're gonna
stranger, and
stomp the
especially if it was
guides
a
first.
cowering stranger, then that elephant would absolutely send you down the field like a freaking football.
But again, it's like the baboons too, and again, other primate species.
Baboons are brutal.
Other mammals have hair, but we're the only ones that are like super vain. We
Well,
recognize
wait a
that's
second.
one. Do other animals
Cats,
even recognize
dolphins,
their own reflection?
Peacocks,
Too, right?
a lot of birds,
Yeah.
a lot of birds. Actually, it's interesting because most of the species is the male, like that are the peacock. You know, it's the male bird that's got the beauty in the whole thing. It's the male bird that's trying to shine and try to be special all the time. And then humans try to have the female be the most beautiful female, at least in
I
the
feel like
way
that's a
media
myth,
and fashion
but
work.
we could get into that.
I do too.
But
If you
want to
beauty,
get into how
beauty's in
that
the eye
affects
of the beholder.
dinosaurs.
You know, I hear that the mother of one's children oftentimes is right. You know, it's a pretty attractive thing.
What about positive and negative sex feminism, Kurt? No, I mean, I was thinking about this earlier because, you know, let's say you're in Turkey right now where the police are arresting this couple for producing an OnlyFans account. Watch them carry him down the stairs again.
The internet said it was legal.
Meanwhile, LA's got all kinds of crazy stuff going on. Day hookers, my friend. There's day hookers everywhere. I'm afraid to even show you the internet right now. Yeah, day hookers are a benchmark for a society, I think. When you have day hookers, that says a lot about your society. This is a lot about, I mean, right? To me, it's like hijabs, your daughters in hijabs, your daughters and wives in hijabs and beekeeper suits, or day hookers. Those are the two roads. My son.
Have you seen the video where the guy goes up to the hooker and he says he'll pay her rate, but instead of doing her normal job, he wants her to clean his truck, and she absolutely refuses?
I mean, I bet.
Nah.
But there are other women. There are other women
who won't scrub a truck. What?
My argument is there are other women you can pay the same amount to do that, to clean your truck.
I mean, her nails cost more than the soap.
I had a friend's mom. She used to clean banks. She used to clean banks. She used to clean restaurants. She used to do all kinds of. Yeah. Well, she was. Yeah. Arguably, it's a little older, but like, you know, that was when I was a teenager. I remember. Mexican kid.
Nothing's more flattering than telling your friend his mom is beautiful. You know what I mean? They love hearing that.
I think she was a beautiful woman. She was married. I respect their whole thing. The only issue was, for some reason, the son was born outside of Mexico. Like, she was legal, her husband was legal, their second son was legal. Somehow, the first son wasn't legal. It was some weird complication.
Mexican citizens.
It's that pesky illegal human being clause. I knew it. It gets them every time.
The mother.
Both parents are Mexican citizens. The kid, like, I'm not sure how Mexican law works, but if both parents are Mexican citizens, then they should get Mexican citizenship. You can't let somebody.
The kid had a Mexican citizenship, but he wasn't an American.
Some people being a citizen, it means that they're going to conscript your children to fight in their army, and so they don't want to be a citizen of any nation because they're not willing to pledge their children to violence in the future.
Well,
barely legal. Oh, we should make a movie about a Mexican kid whose family, he's like the only illegal one in his family. Yeah, barely legal. That's what we'll call it. But no, that's what it was like. You know, it was everyone was legal in his family, his mom, his dad, his brother, just not him. And that was a really complicated, terrible thing. Anyway, that wasn't really my point.
Sounds rough.
If you want to talk about how messed up the world is, my thought was, what's better, day hookers or, you know,
I feel like there's a happy medium where you're not doing either one of those things.
Dude, this is a great video because the boobs are bouncing up and down.
You're saying what's better or worse for society, or is it better or worse to be this person?
The same thing as in the Shanktown video, by the way. Hold on, let me pull that up. I think I sent it in the group chat a little while ago.
What do you think about Turkey's laws to protect society by not allowing OnlyFans and demodesty? And what do you think? Is this? I mean, do you like OnlyFans? Do you think that that's a good thing? Should we continue it?
It's just a platform. What you do on it is sort of like up to the person creating it. Just so happens that
this is like Red Note and TikTok, huh?
Guys, it's thinking like this though. Again, when it was only legal to have sex in the missionary position, and that's like a law on the books in the United States because people don't have very much to do apparently with their time other than like I'm worrying about what people are doing in the privacy of their own home.
What the heck? Dang.
It can make one a target for sure.
Dude.
Oh yeah, like the indicted ex-mayor of Oakland is I think she's absolutely beautiful.
Dude, wow.
Yep.
Dang.
She knows exactly what she's doing too. You can see look on her face. Those crazy
No
liberal girls,
fashion.
exactly my type. Goddamn.
That's a move. That's a move right there. Okay, so wait,
See,
Kurt,
that's
thoughts
why
on
Sean
positive
doesn't
sex
work
and
in an
negative
office
sex
with
feminism?
women.
Wait. If you think if I flew to
Wait,
California and changed my
hold
gender,
on,
I can get locked
hold
up
on.
with her.
Probably. Kurt, what do you think about positive versus negative sex feminism? Go.
I've never heard of that.
Positive sex versus this is negative sex right here, right? Negative sex is where they arrest the TikTokers. Positive sex is where women can sell their own sexuality and the industrialization of the vagina by Sheila Kilt. You know, that whole thing.
I talked to a friend I had a few years ago who was in the military and was stationed in Germany, and in Germany, sex is very, very much industrialized. His opinion was that the legalization of sex work it doesn't really empower the women; it empowers the pimps. Which, yeah, it's a very interesting perspective. I don't know. Like, how much do you view? Is anything sacred? That's a question I think anyone needs to ask themselves. Is anything sacred?
You ask yourself that question, and how desperate are you to get your dick wet that the industrial vagina seems like the best option that day? Or you can just like hold out for something that's more authentic,
the thirst is real. Hold on, I really need to comment on this. The thirst is real, and the people who feel it literally just need to like get on that self-improvement flow, make sure that they look like they care about themselves. That's the main important thing when you want to attract somebody who will care about you, is you need to look like you care about yourself in a way that makes people believe you. If you can,
humans are really vain.
Never be desperate for pussy again.
But it's not really true about mate selection. But
what?
Yeah, I mean, well, the idea that homosexual advertisement creators and fashion people are exploiting men.
Grunge on the West Coast was a thing.
There,
again, like
if you
guys
use
like
drugs,
you,
if you use drugs to get to women,
someone who's covered in might.
If you use drugs to get to women, you sell the drugs to the men. You have boys and men that are spending all of their money in order to buy products instead of just trying to buy the women now, because the women are now more of they've depreciated the value of women so much they can use women to sell cars. That's the point. Now you're
like a pansexual, a bisexual,
yeah, like the Western male's attitude towards sex in general, whether or not they're objectifying men or women, seems to be the crux of the issue that puts other people in position to commodify themselves, whether it be like in person or on a platform. So like the real issue is like, how do we get men to stop viewing sex in this sort of like transactional, vapid,
I know an easy way.
Exchange.
Well, the thing about it is that most men see that like satisfying sex is something that's constantly just out of reach for some reason, and that's what causes that desperate urge to like constantly chase it. If you're getting enough of it that you're satisfied and confident constantly, you really don't ever feel pushed around or led around by the dick.
Yeah, no, I could see that.
Nikola
media and culture certainly plays a.
Nikola Tesla said he never got married because if he gave all of his attention to allowing himself to be fully in love with someone and have a family, it would take all of his energy. He would apply all of his genius to making sure that he tended to that situation that he did into all of his other work that like saved humanity a few times from not being able to have electricity. And
here's the thing,
or like never inventing the AC engine because he was looking at flat Earth maps. But like, I think
that both genders have the same sex drive, but the fact that women assume more risk in the exchange, so to speak, means that they're going to be a lot more reserved about it. But that doesn't mean that they have any less of a physical carnal drive. So like, if you can really
like dry humping, or are you talking about like P and the V sex? Like again, like there's just so many things between point A and point B. Are you just talking about penetration, or
they assume more risk?
Just going. How long have you felt that way? How long have you felt that way, Sean? Sorry.
I'm sorry. Literally, like that's like I grew up with many sisters, a mother and a stepmother. So I've had a lot of women giving me a lot of advice on just what their perspective is like. When they tell me, when they recommend behavior, I'll always question it because I'm like, yeah, my own experience has led me to believe differently. But when they tell me about what their perspective is like, I listen because you know what? That's not going to be bullshit.
Well, it goes back to the weed thing kind of, because there's that physiological sort of satisfaction and then there's the psychic satisfaction. And it's like, which one are you pursuing? What are you doing in
thrill or
order
a
to
connection.
achieve that? Yeah, exactly.
Again, like Freud would ask Sean, so like you're trying to conform to the identity of the type of male that would appeal to which one of your sisters the most again? Was it your mom or?
Listen, the one thing that women are looking for
Sometimes
most,
it's
and
like, right, you know, it's
you
like
have to
whatever
make
advice.
them feel
If I had a bunch of sisters, I would probably do the opposite of whatever they told me to, because most of the chicks where I grew up were like these prissy, clicky.
You can't really do the opposite of everything because they're going to be randomly correct sometimes. So you can't discount everything they say.
No, and it's good to get input, you know.
And you know, some people, like you brought up Nikola Tesla and all of his accomplishments. I wish that, you know, as many inventors and pioneers had that sort of ethos motivating them, because a lot of inventions or accomplishments, you could say, were a form of womb envy, since, you know, man creates as a secondary sort of thing. We are not sort of we don't actually like carry and bring new people and souls and spirits, and we're not like the vessel, we're not the channel, we're just kind of like a, you know, sugar and spice and everything nice that you throw into the fucking stew that then, you know, feeds everybody.
I dig it. You know, and Sean, I don't mean to be adversarial. I know you and I just like go back and forth, and like usually it's entertaining a little bit, and I know you can dole it out. And
I don't know. It just seems like it's weird because maybe I think of it more strongly in Europe because it's like here it's so much more
Vega
obvious.
Laugh, though, so.
But you have like extremely innocent people, and some of them are choosing either to dress like prostitutes because that's what's on TV, or to become more radicalized by religion into Islam and modesty and to cover themselves up completely.
How do you dress up like nobody, though? Is that just being naked all the time? And that's not legal? Again, the human body is disgusting.
Dressing like nobody is kind of similar. Man. You've got a hat. You've got yours. That's similar. Like you don't have to wear a hijab to wear a hat covering your hair, and then to wear a jacket and to cover all of your body. That's what people are doing. I mean, if you dress kind of like Kurt, you know, you could kind of be anybody. Kurt's an anybody. Look at that.
The gray man.
I think the hijab and like the bra as a shirt are both kind of extremes that are probably not very great.
No, it's a benchmark.
Common comfort.
I said it earlier. It's a benchmark. If your society has day hookers and they allow that, it's a benchmark. It's a level of freedom that's so extreme. I remember being in Berlin in 1999, 2000, 2001 and seeing the transitions, and it was like, wow, you can get a kebab for like 2 marks. That's crazy, you know. Like, and I was grateful.
If there was true absolute freedom and everybody was also in a healthy, stable position, how many people would actually choose that profession?
I think it's fear, though. Fear that they're going to be either not able to make it, or they won't be cool enough now. It's like one's worried about the future, one's worried about existing immediately. The
interesting thing about being a person is that, you know, you could eat to sustain your body and consume calories just enough so that you survive, but you can also have a delicious meal. There is certainly a pleasure aspect to being a human, but
further than that, you could also engineer a delicious meal that's nutritious.
Yeah, or you could engineer a meal that's delicious and not nutritious at all. So it's really, and that's where it's like, okay, intent and who are you harming in the pursuit of either gaining pleasure or providing it. And is one of those people you're harming yourself, you know? That seems to be at like the core of most morality in religion or law or whatever. It's the harm done.
Yeah, what I really like about what
Look-
Vega was saying is kind of like, how do you move away from the transactional aspect of it, outside of whether that should be legal or not, and is it moral or immoral? If the real question, as you're saying, is how do you move spiritually away from desiring even that type of interaction? Doesn't matter how beautiful the person is on the other end. That's not the situation in which you're trying to engage in that type of behavior with someone. And, you know, that's like and the difficulty is like once that's been you've decided as a younger person, or maybe after something happened, to give that away or to share yourself with lots of people, and then to reclaim those sense of boundaries or something is a whole separate process. But again, one thing I heard in the spiritual teachings of, I don't remember what tradition it was, but the idea is like almost don't have intercourse with someone unless you would want to be that person.
I get that. Like, my philosophy has always been like, don't sleep with somebody you wouldn't at least be friends with.
Sounds like a complicated way to say go fuck yourself.
But yeah, that makes
All
sense
right.
to me. Like,
I
you don't
get
respect
the
somebody,
joke.
why would you
Sorry,
sleep with
sorry.
them?
No, that was actually really funny, Kurt. Thank you. Solid joke. Well played. Well played.
Grounding energy. I don't know. So it feels like to me, though, that if you allow for your culture to become hyper sexualized, like to the point of Japan, right, where your schoolgirls are iconic anime brands and things, then sexual reproduction rate falls. Is that like too crazy to make a correlation between? Like, why is it that all these
Okay, it's
reproduction
because
rates
it's a
fall?
new thing. It's a new thing that a woman this past like 2 or 3 years was 67 years old and gave birth to a healthy child. So the paradigm that we grew up in
is
to anything
gone.
over
Yes.
35 is called a geriatric pregnancy. So if you're wondering, is it possible for society
Destroyed
to make up for the population numbers by not just impregnating teenagers all the time? Yeah, there are other people that if they may be eligible and are willing for certain programs.
Did they need drugs for that?
Probably, but you know, so what?
Of course,
If
that's
they
the question. And I'm not even sure
they
where that's
make-
coming. I hope that was like a work. I hope that was a work, Sean. If that
Is
was
that
a real
'cause,
thought,
like,
that
oh,
occurred to you
because
based on what I
marijuana's
just
a
said,
drug,
I
so
don't
it's
even
like
know.
drugs.
I'm just wondering because I was thinking, like, imagine she just thought that whole part of her life was over and it just happened randomly, because that would have been crazy.
But wait, where did
No,
drugs
that's
come into
cool.
any of that? I'm just so confused.
Oh
Where-
no! I didn't mean like psychedelic or psychoactive drugs. I meant
Right,
like fertility
Fertility
drugs.
drugs.
Oh,
Yeah, we
you're
got
saying
that.
did she have a doctor who understood
Yeah,
how
like, did
humans
she
work and that
engineer
was
that
able to
scenario,
allow
or did
her
it just
to?
come upon her?
I'm pretty sure she
don't-
probably was taking drugs. They make drugs for that.
I think,
That's the point.
was
Yeah,
she?
I
Did
know
she
about the
pick
drugs
her
for
sperm
that.
from a sperm bank, or that's the other question?
I think it was all natural way. I saw the news thing with her like on the
Was it
hospital
somebody
bed. I
standing
actually got to
behind her,
roll
like-
out, but I just wanted to leave you guys with this. It seems like the issue is fulfillment, because if we weren't using substances or certain behaviors as a form of escape, then there wouldn't really be that negative aspect, and you wouldn't have these like secret cabals of billionaires doing all sorts of weird nefarious things and blackmailing each other. Love you guys.
I love you, bro. I'm glad you were here.
Love you, bro. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for the data. Thanks for the thoughts.
Yeah, that blackmail thing though, like, it's always weird to me that celebrities and
Big
billionaires
rock
are like doing blackmail sex, because I've never had sex in a way I could be blackmailed for. Like, even if somebody
That's
had me
why
on
you're not
camera-
famous.
But if somebody had me on camera doing it, they would be like, "Oh wow, that's pretty good." You know what I mean? Like, I'd be like,
That's
"All right,
why-
you know, I mean, like, I'm probably
that's
embarrassed
why
that's
the,
out there, but like, there's nothing that's like terribly like I didn't do anything wrong.
Again,
on the
Sean, there are
tape.
people
Like,
that
it's
make a
more
living
wrong
that
if somebody
way.
pointed the camera at me without me knowing.
There
Like,
was
what
a
the
There's
fuck?
some
politician
guys
that put out
who
sex
make a
tape
living
to show that he
changing a
couldn't
light
be
bulb
bought.
twice a year, and that light bulb's all the way on top of a tall tower, and they make like 50 grand because when that fuse goes out, someone needs to climb up to the tower and replace it and know how to. And some guys, that light bulb on the top of the tower is just some rich guy's wife that he knows, and it's her pussy, and like that's the one other guy he lets get in on it, and he takes care of him. And, you know, it's like, but you're talking about should you be ashamed if there's people who have you on video having sex? I mean, you're saying you've always closed every corner of the blinds when I don't know.
No, I'm saying if there was a video of a hidden camera video of me
Here's
having
the
sex,
question. When was the last time you had
if
sex in your own
pointed the camera
bedroom?
at me would be ashamed. I would have literally nothing to be ashamed of. I would just be embarrassed.
Okay.
Like there would be nothing to be doing on that tape that would be wrong.
And that's
Like, it
an
would be-
inherent
it would
thing
be
too.
passionate
Vinny,
sex.
This Okay,
We're
this is an
ashamed of our
interesting.
naked bodies. When we're naked,
No,
we
we're
feel this
not.
gotta be shame.
Actually, thank you. I remember that was something I posted
I'm
at
actually
some
pretty
point.
proud of my body.
You're a Guido
But it's
by
still
default.
embarrassing, though. It's like, yeah.
Think about it.
Oh yeah, I don't
No,
want a
it's
picture of my
not.
naked ass
It's
out
not.
in public.
I don't
even
I want
mind
most people
probably
to know
in
either.
front of
they're
other
seeing
people
anyway.
generally.
I don't think it, but like the question is how much do you mind? Would you ever pay a ransom for it? No, I wouldn't either. I
No,
agree with
absolutely
you.
not. Like anytime I ever got a message like that, I was like, yo, everybody I know, everybody in my phone has seen my naked ass once or twice before when I was fucking drunk and doing something retarded.
I still haven't seen his, but I'm grateful for that. The point is the same.
Are you sure
We're
about
able
that?
to live.
But Sean, see your
We're
manners.
able to
It
live in
sounds
a
like, man, you have
world
a lot
without
of female
privacy
siblings.
and without shame. Privacy and shame are some sort of manufactured
But like,
idea
you
that
don't
not
have
everyone
to be
experiences.
ashamed of your body. You can be embarrassed that you
Yeah.
know somebody who you didn't want to see it has seen it, but there's nothing to be ashamed of.
When I was losing my virginity, I literally
Why
walked
would
by
you
a
be
big mirror in my
embarrassed?
house with a girl that I was in, and I was embarrassed by the sight of both of our naked bodies because again, I was like raised in New England as like a shy Jewish boy, and that programming sticks still for me, you know. Yeah, so
Ashamed or embarrassed though? Like you didn't think there was something wrong with it. You were just like, oh wow, I've never been this
no,
exposed.
but I caught
so I'm not
myself
used
just
to
seeing
it.
my own naked reflection, and it was like, oh, I'm not supposed to be naked. I'm an adult, you know. Even in my
I
own house,
love
when no one
looking.
was
I love
home,
looking in the mirror
with-
naked with a woman. That's like such a good feeling for me.
See, that's the question: is where does this idea come from that God? We felt ashamed in front of God for being naked. Even as a kid, I felt
I'm like, yo,
I
God,
never
thanks for
completely
this. This is
sympathized.
awesome.
I never sympathized with this idea. Kurt.
Okay. I love biblical stuff. No, it's we came from the essentially we came from the jungle. We came from the jungle, and so now we're not as hairy as we used to be. We kind of shed that off, but it's like
Trim it a little bit.
we are still suffering from the pain of civilization. That's a good way to put it. It's we know that we are far removed from our origin, and therefore, yeah, because we're far removed from our origin, it's like we know there's a certain vulnerability that comes with it. That's the best I can.
Oh God, that's horrifying. That's so. I hate you. I resonate really hard with what you just said. Think about it. So we're lost. We're not in nature anymore. We subconsciously recognize this, and we're trying to fit into a thing which doesn't exist yet because it's heaven.
I totally reject that, man. Like we're animals, and this is a natural state that we just put a bunch of artificial things in. But there's still like nature surrounding it, and you can still be that like animal underneath it all. Like there's nothing wrong with that, so long as you're like doing the right thing and being courteous.
How
like
animal? How much are we? We're weirder than animals. But okay, Kurt, go ahead.
No, I'm saying
I love cats. Oh, go ahead, Kurt. Sorry.
It's not that you have totally separated your animalistic self. It's still there, but it's like shoved off into a corner. You know, it's the hidden Jungian shadow. You know, and so it's like you could say half of our problems.
Oh yeah, people want to reject that so hard for some reason, and that causes like a massive cognitive dissonance. But you just realize that like you're a human being, you're gonna have contradictory beliefs sometimes. You know what I mean? You're gonna have some things that are just like not always 100% meshing with everything. And if you could just accept that and just be cool with it, things get a lot easier.
For sure.
And then maybe work to correct those hypocritical thoughts. But that the first phase one is at least acknowledging the human condition involves sometimes having contradictory thoughts, right? And giving other people the patience.
I don't think that's accurate.
We
are
are
just trying
right
these thoughts on for size. You know, we're here live on YouTube. Again, most people would never be willing to speak live into a microphone under any conditions. People are just paranoid. So go us.
Yeah.
This is me dealing with my social phobia.
The biggest thing I think people can accept is that actual contradictions. There are two contradictory statements are simultaneously true. Paradoxes are not imaginary things. Paradoxes are true things. There's like a duality of existence that we have to accept in order to to thrive and fully function. It's like one. I guess the biggest contradiction is that we're destined to die, but life is still worth living. You know, both of those things are true, but they don't have to. They seem contradictory, but they're not. And there's so many examples of contradictory things you can think of philosophically that don't fit into our Western framework of thought. And, you know, a lot of our problems I view as coming out of the Enlightenment, because like we've had, we just had such a massive, I don't even know, collision between like thought processes, and a lot of thought processes, and a lot of them have been, you know, existential questions in nature, and our own pursuit of knowledge. And you could say our own pursuit of knowledge is also you know, it's very fleeting. It's not necessarily totally meaningless, but at the end of the day, it's like in a world that's constantly changing and moving, and built with a lot, we're fluid based animals, you know, it's hard to have anything concrete. When you have a language, you know, if you look at language just a few hundred years ago, it's like you have to have people specializing in interpretations to try to get you an accurate translation of any sort of, you know, technology that they had a few hundred years ago. It's not that we can't, it's just that that's how rapidly things are moving. In the grand scope of time, 500 years is not a lot of time. And so it's like, how do we trust any sort of scientific discovery, you know, quote unquote discovery that we have, if something like language is as, you know, frigid as it has been over just the course of a few hundred years. So it's these are a lot of thoughts I don't think we've approached as a society, but I think they're things that can, I guess, provide comfort and meaning to us if we actually do approach them. And
Dude, I just saw a crazy Austrian man in a freaking sweatshirt yesterday. He's wearing a turtleneck, he was wearing all black in a turtleneck, and he was smoking like Foucault. And he was talking to me about human design and Gurdjieff and some prophet oracle reader medium dude named Ra or something. But it's interesting because you were talking about like human design in a sense in terms of the 500 years and all that. And it was interesting. That was basically the way he was saying it as well, that there's periods of time that we go through, and that generationally there's social and individual reactions that happen between the man and the woman and the different West and the East that lead to an evolution over 500 years of generation by generation, certain kinds of people, which is how you get, you know, certain groups of people become very individualistic and other groups of people become very traditional or social hierarchical, or people that are more interested in wolf packs versus insect hives.
And it's not permanent.
Something.
Like the Nazarite vow is 25 years, and every 25 years you kind of reevaluate the principles to which you're committing yourself to, but you like take the time to evaluate the vows you're going to make and why you think
imagine being that self-aware
those for a certain amount of time, and then you allow yourself permission to reevaluate the vows that you're going to make to yourself for the next 25 years.
Imagine being that
As opposed to
self-aware,
saying,
though, right?
This is how I'm going to be forever, and operating from that kind of standpoint of, you could call it a delusion almost. But.
Yeah, but I do think there's something to what you are as a intersection between the past and the future. You're this sort of split between the infinity sign where the past is happening to make you and you are happening to make the future. So this intersection is a vortice, and you think about a salmon swimming upstream. Like if you put a fish in a vortex, it will swim upwards, right? It goes upwards through a vortex. So the vortice pushes it the opposite direction in the Tao. The Tao is flowing towards the path of least resistance, but it's flowing from the source as well as back to the source. So the salmon is swimming towards the source against the flow, which is it's not something that's always explainable or not always understandable. Why the Tao is going one way, something has to go the other way in terms of polarity. But I think that's what it is. It's the vortice.
Yeah, you just experience.
That's the American Sign
reality.
Language for what the sign you just made is bullshit. That's the sign for it's because of the bullhorns and then the shit. This is as you were saying, there's got to be room for it somehow. I mean,
you got to be really careful with
like dissonant thought and all that. Like, you don't have to feel like a pain just because you realize there's like two contradictory beliefs that you hold. You can just be like, yeah, that's what I believe. That's fine. And I wonder when it will be revealed to me why I have two seemingly contradictory beliefs. If you just have that thought and just continue on your way, you'll fine. But if you stick on it, if you hang on it, if you like stay in one spot in the vortex instead of swimming up against it, then you're gonna sink.
That's what they told people who wanted to legalize weed. And again, like some people, you know, there's a scent trigger, and some people, there's a light that goes on and they can lower their blood pressure. Some people, if they smell rose perfume, it reminds them of something that was used when they were a child, when someone was singing them a song. They don't know why that smell makes their blood pressure go down, but it does. And so for some people, tobacco smoke, even if it's vanilla and there's just a little bit of it in the room, it reminds them of their grandpa or growing up, and all of a sudden they're comfortable with the people. And if they're in an environment where people are smoking cigarettes, though, they might associate that with, you know, fights they've seen break out or this, that, or the other. And, you know, but if you work on a farm, you're smelling all types of things all day. And so when you smoke a cigarette, it's like supposed to stink. And all you want to smell like on your beard and mustache for a minute is like that, because that, like, that's like, instead of you can't really wash up all the time throughout the day when you work on a farm.
Yeah,
and so it's just like your way of giving yourself a smoke bath with. But if it's a lot of nicotine in your beard and it can seep into your system,
your olfactory.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to smell nothing on a farm, I'm sure.
Well, you want to be able to smell things, because if something smells different, it gives you an indication of something's going on, or the feed changed, or.
Yeah, but once you survey
like when there's a coyote coming through and pissing on your property, your dog smells it too. And then he brings you over to, the dog's like freaking out about this bush over here, and it's because, you know, there's something passing through, and you know
this
that
is where the
you tell your
coyotes
kids not to play in the backyard until. Bears.
Well, okay.
Bears.
Ooh, those are no good. You know, a coyote you could kind of shoo away by hand. A bear you can't do that with. Maybe a black bear if you're lucky, and if it's cooperative. If it's pissed off, you're fucked.
And Andreas, so you met that guy too, though. You're saying you met some guy and he explained all that stuff too. I think I met. No, I'm just kidding. But
no, but my
so
buddy
you met some like,
Mikhail,
wizard on the street, and he just started breaking out this esotericism to you. That's friggin' awesome.
we'll do a thing with Raph, I think, at some point pretty soon. I think we've done a video with him in the past, Mikhail, and he's writing a book, and I'm gonna help edit it, or at least proofread it so that it's American as fuck. But he's a very good Foucault kind of vibe dude, I would say. But he's got a lot of philosophical background and existential.
I believe it's pronounced Foucault. Like it's short for fuck it all to hell. Is like his,
you
his
too, man. Yeah, exactly. That's what it feels like. I don't know.
But no, because American Time Machine, Kurt was bringing up the idea that misbehavior is rooted in nihilism. And again, that is the unique breed of American misbehavior, because generally it's due to adherence to some sort of orthodoxy that is perceived by other people as you doing evil.
I kind of disagree with also
entity, but nihilism.
Like I think nihilism leads to an allowance for something.
Are you talking about classical nihilism or Gen X nihilism?
I'm talking about classical, but imagine that there's a machine and you don't know exactly where the problem is. So you know there's a problem, you can tell, but you can't hear exactly where it's coming from. So it's a steam machine, and you wait for the pressure to build so long that you can find out exactly where the problem is. And that's nihilism. It's something where you're saying, all right, we're going to just ignore the regular. It's kind of an effective accelerationism to an extent. You allow things to break
so far that we finally can see where it's coming from.
Exactly. And I think that's
why there are lead seals in the ancient Roman water systems. They said that, the lead got into the water and it did affect the people, but as a pressure seal, you can engineer something that will hold back 500,000 million quadrillion tons per square inch. But the ideal way to do it is to have some sort of soft metal seal that bursts so that the system burps before you create some sort of. Because in Boston, when they brought fresh water in like 1855 or something, they opened the spigot and an 80-foot tower of water came out. And now you've seen what happens when you superheat water. You can light a flame to the end of it, right? Has everyone seen this? It's like a science demonstration on YouTube. There's a coil of copper wire. You put water in the other end, and it gets so hot you superheat the steam, and you can literally light it like a torch.
Oh,
So
because
imagine
like
you have
you're actually
a water
pyrolyzing
spigot
it.
coming out of the air, yeah, and it's separate. It was under such pressure that when it's coming out, it's actually hydrogen and oxygen gas, which are like pretty flammable.
That's terrifying.
But some people say that's why the sky is blue, is because that's actually what's
Like
happening.
when
The
you
Earth
if
is
you
burping
take
all these
water,
gases that
right?
are being
If you
electrolyzed
take
and
water and
on
heat it
fire.
up so that it splits like that, the amount of heat that you have to put into it is the exact amount of heat that's going to come out of it when it recombines. So that's a shit ton of energy. That's fucking terrifying.
All it takes is, again, the Great Lakes are 1,500 feet higher than the rest of the East Coast, and so you just have to have a tube that's really strong that goes all the way from here. And again, there's like aqueducts in between to kind of, because if you have one big tunnel,
dig a canal, put a wheel in it.
It'd be an effective defensive weapon from the port. You could kind of, if you just pointed it that way instead of that way,
Well, if you really think about it, all you'd have to do, if you really wanted to effectively transmit the energy from that, yeah, I'm saying just build, not even an ion beam, just build a hydrological dam and then a hydroelectric dam and then use a laser.
When they say that dinosaurs or like Godzilla would spit electricity, so if you were a giant dinosaur and you had a big bellows and your skin was really tough and you would like sip up a bunch of water and you would go and you have a long neck and you could even you could eventually literally have lightning shooting out from the a giant water spigot, which
remember that thing is made out of leather. It's not really a pressure chamber. So
not the
like
dinosaurs.
The physiology of long neck dinosaurs is actually really interesting and complicated because there's so many different things to consider. It's like there's no way those things worked the same way as an animal that lives today. There's like so many different things that needed to have been modified. It's insane. They were probably very delicate animals, actually. That's the thing that most people don't realize. Like when something's like that big, its own size makes it delicate. Because there's so much.
The thing is, they can go. So there are already snakes that can go years without eating, and so the idea that it's delicate.
They're cold blooded. But there's no way dinosaurs were not cold blooded. Dinosaurs were absolutely warm blooded. Okay. They couldn't. They could not have lived.
We call dinosaurs existed over a couple 100 million years at least, and there were the Gorgons. There were the. So
those are the Gorgons weren't dinosaurs.
Whether they weren't. They might
Gorgonopsids were stem mammals. Gorgonopsids were more closely related to us than dinosaurs.
Reptiles.
Indeed.
There are warm-blooded reptiles, so there's no reason that they couldn't have been. That seems
and the reason they're fragile is because how do they reproduce? And again, when the animal's been alive for longer than humans, and you've never seen it reproduce, and you've been like following it for 500 years, and again, you keep feeding the giant snake with legs, or you can call it a dragon or a dinosaur, or a giant amphibious reptile. I mean, who knows?
And there were like a whole different lineage of like crocodile-like organisms rather than dinosaurs are pretty much like steroid birds. But like there were also other lineages that were just as brolic, that were crazy. Like there was literally just a bunch of different kind of crocodiles. Some were shaped like horses, kind of, but they had a croc head, obviously, and they would be carnivorous. There were some herbivorous crocs as well. It's insane.
Andreas, is there a market for alligator meat? Is there a market for alligator meat?
What kind of
Vienna?
Yeah, the alligator.
I do love alligator meat. So delicious. Kurt, if you thought humanity could learn from some sort of a animal, like birds, bees, crocodiles, turtles. I don't know. Let's see. Zebras, lions, dogs, cats. Let's think about it for a second. What would be your favorite? What do you think? Which animal in nature do you think humans could learn the most from?
Alex the parrot. That was that was an OG.
You think parrots? Parrots are the animal that humans could learn from the most? Or did you just like Alex the parrot? You mean?
I just thought Alex the parrot was a superior example. Cool. No, I mean you can learn about all sorts of. I don't know. Just take your pick. I think a lot of things that we don't pay attention to have the most surprises to offer. Like I I hate to use real life anecdotes, but they're fun, right? So like when I went snorkeling, if you ever go snorkeling, the best part about it is if you know, like go do a duck dive, you'll see that a lot of the animals, it seems like they get curious. A lot of just fish. We don't give any mind about consciousness to fish in general. But like they'll come up and check you out. They're like, "What the heck is this thing?" They're not really afraid of you. They kind of intuitively know that you're not really a predator. They won't let you get up close or anything like that. They're just kind of curious about what you are. So it's like I really think the possibilities for any what do you call it? For vertebrate animals, I think they all provide their own unique
Yeah,
opportunities.
but fish taste so good that mammals went back into the water and became dolphins, and we're like, "Yo, we're gonna get these things. They're delicious." And they gave up all their limbs, and they gave up all their fur, and they have to like breathe up there. But those fish are delicious, man. And when you're under the water, it's one thing to like see a fish, and dude, if you get checked out by a pod of wild dolphins, you're just sitting there looking like a piece of seaweed, and you can move like a little bit like that way if you flip your flippers really, and then they're looking at you more, and they're just like all of a sudden they're gone, and they're like hyper jumped as a pod like 40 feet that way, and they're just like flicking their tail. And there's some smart things that live underwater though.
There's really not that many different kinds of animals though when you think about it though. Like if you go down the line, like you've got like the primates, the humans and monkeys and apes and whatnot, and then you've got the gliers like rodents and rabbits and all that, and then the vegetarians, you've got the carnivorans and like elk, and the elk isn't a carnivoran, but like the deer shaped things or whatever.
You guys,
the mammals, like marsupials, and then reptiles.
I gotta go. We're at the final 2 hours. Let me get a closing words.
Really quick. If you look at everything, all behaviors through like an evolutionary lens, it makes a lot of sense why people act the way they do. So if you just think about it from that perspective, things become a lot less confusing.
I agree with that 100%. Epigenetics are happening right now. We can affect them. And that if you look at where people come from, that's exactly, you can't just blame people for being who they are. And you can't give people credit for being self-made man. And all that's true. All right. Stefan. You want to do something? What are you feeling right now? What are you feeling?
I would say that I think we need to bring Mexico and their FEMA network into the American system, or even the Massachusetts. We just need to figure out how much we need to pay them for them to be part of our network for emergencies.
Louis C.K. is from Mexico. Yeah.
But the other thing I would just say is, instead of legalizing all the drugs and all the amounts, I'm proposing, at least in Massachusetts, that we at least just do that for weed, and we don't necessarily do that for all the other drugs, because other states, that legislation, it already exists, and you just got to kind of push it through the system. And I don't necessarily want to live in a state like that. But if weed were legal that way, I don't think it would be that much of a problem. But, there's 6 one way, half dozen the other to some people.
Yeah, I agree with that. Oh, and I hope they don't burn the hell out of the entire. Like, it's crazy. I went to Dresden to see the damage, and like I left California to do it. You know what I mean?
Oh, damn.
So, Kurt,
but I'm also not saying that all other drugs should be criminalized. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying if you're gonna have something,
I agree.
Again, it used to only be legal to have sex in the missionary position.
Cannabis should be treated lesser than alcohol, and it's really insane.
If people didn't flaunt the law, like
alcohol
drug use will be illegal, right?
I don't think drug use should be a crime,
you have
but
to
I
fight
think
against the powers that be sometimes. Yeah.
I think there should be a legal intervention that can happen if someone's like addicted in a way that they're hurting themselves, where a judge can say, "Listen, I'm not finding you guilty of anything, but you're required to go through this program, because otherwise you're just going to be a danger to yourself and others."
I would like to study that. I would like to take time and study Japanese. Japan and China does a thing where and Russia used to do it too. I think they probably might eventually do it again, where they can take over your life to a degree if they want to. If you're, eating
comes with a free
dangerously
guys,
or taking drugs. Well, not necessarily. It might be the opposite, Stefan. It might be they're trying to save
your program. Right?
They're trying to save their population. They're like, look, they find a guy like Kurt. He's an amazing, handsome, musical genius. you know, and then like maybe he like eats too many Cheetos. So they say, all right, we're gonna come into his life and we're gonna stop him from eating the Cheetos. You can only have one bag of Cheetos a week on Thursdays, Kurt.
I think
You
if
know,
it's just
something like
somebody's
that.
unable to house themselves, it would be a better
Kurt gets
line.
the final word here. Kurt gets the final word, and then Andreas has got to be out.
It's true. Kurt, what you got? You want
I'm his
to think?
manager.
You've got a thing. You're managing well, by the way. Thank you, Stefan. You're a beautiful man.
Just trying to hold it somewhere reasonable. 2 hours is a lot of time. I appreciate the time.
All right.
I voted for Trump because I'm a communist.
Oh my God! Exactly. Amen.
Wow.
Amen, my brother. Me too, though.
No, it's very cool to see my family, my nephew. Sorry to bring him up again, but like we were moving wood. Yeah. Blue collar guy was moving firewood. He
Hope you chopped it too.
Yeah. Well, earlier this year, I didn't do much chopping. I just moved it. But
Love chopping firewood.
Yeah, my nephew is like 1.5 years, and he just wanted to help us out, so we gave him a bunch of twigs, you know, to like put down like a little slide down to the basement. And we are like, okay, here you go, you can hold this, and it was really adorable. But now, if you, I think, you know, it's in our intuition to try to help people. I guess, you know, that I think that's a good takeaway. It's not just in that child. I think all children are born with that intuition to help people, and so it's like it's very easy to get caught up in, you know, the goods and bads of our culture, but you know, just I don't know, return to the good parts of your childlike nature, and those are things that I think are beneficial to yourself, not just beneficial to other people, because I think, you know, the real things that are beneficial to people also are beneficial to yourself. It doesn't have to be always under you know, a production sort of you know, scarcity capitalist mindset. It's just like really it comes back to the nature of people, I guess. I don't know, that's I feel like I was going somewhere philosophical with that, but that's what I got. Hope you're all doing well.
All right.
It's been surreal, guys.
I love you guys.
Advanced philosophy memes. We make good memes. Advanced philosophy memes. Base fucking memes. Advanced philosophy memes. We make good memes. Advanced philosophy memes. Base fucking memes. Shoutouts to Andreas, decorum, Boy Scott, Pedro, and everyone else that engages on my posts. And Sarah, keep it up, man. You'll get there someday. And everyone else from Great Memes.
Goodbye. Have